Welcome back to Giants.com. My name is John Schmelk, and it's time for the Giants Training Camp Report, the online edition. With me is Michael Eisen. Pat Hanlon will be joining us in just a couple of seconds. Mike, day 2 of Giants Training Camp, second day of 2 days. The players seem to be getting that burn that Coach Coughlin wants them to get up here in Albany.
Yeah, Coach Coughlin mentioned today that the players look like they're ready to get into pads. There's some hard hitting going on, even though they're not yet in pads. The defense looked particularly frisky in the first workout today.
Yeah, and at this point in camp, it always seems like the defense is a half a step ahead of the offense because of rhythm, dynamics, comfort level, and all that stuff.
I thought they looked a little more than half a step ahead today. I thought the secondary was intercepting or knocking down a lot of balls this morning. They really looked like they were getting after it.
Mike and I always do these training camp reports. We're trying to mix it up a little bit in this offseason. Giants Online comes your way in the regular season, but in the preseason, you get none of this guy, the Giants VP of Communications, Pat Hanlon.
First of all, you two clowns, why your voices don't sound anything like they sound in normal conversation. And this will be the last time that I appear on Giants.com with you two.
Flattering as always, Pat. Obviously, the organization
Thanks for that intro, Pat.
Obviously, the Giants got some good news yesterday. No bill was issued on Antonio Pierce by the grand jury. Obviously, the organization, I think, was expecting that, and I think they were happy with the decision.
Until that decision was made, we didn't know what to expect. Antonio didn't know what to expect. The only thing that I'll repeat, which we said many times over the last few days, is, he took this matter very seriously. He dealt with it in a professional, serious way. Obviously, we're all relieved and happy with the way things turned out. And as he said, he's not sorry for the way he responded after he was thrust into that situation. He is, however, sorry for having put himself in that in the situation where he had to respond to something like that. And that's, he's a captain of this team, and he should expect more of himself, and I think he will in the future. I think it was a great learning experience.
You have a pretty good feel on the pulse of this team. What's your
Not
sense
like
of the
you,
team's
Schmelk.
attitude coming into this training camp? Did they have a little chip on their shoulder coming off that loss to the Eagles last year?
Schmelk, would you have a chip on your shoulder if you go into the playoffs
Yeah, right, I would.
as the #1 seed, you've got a home game against your arch rival, the Philadelphia Eagles, and you blow it? Would you have a chip on your shoulder?
I'll be fired up.
What they've, in various ways, these players have expressed it, that it was a missed opportunity. We had everything you would want heading into the postseason. We were the #1 seed. We had a home game. We were playing a team that we had beaten earlier in the year. The rest of the field was full of teams that we had beaten earlier in the year, and we blew it. So that failure to capitalize on that opportunity, I think, certainly provided motivation throughout the offseason, and it ought to provide it here during training camp.
And if you guys at home want to check out the pulse of the team minute by minute, you can check out Pat Hanlon on Twitter. Pat, what are the fans going to get out of you if they check out your Twitter page?
More than they bargained for.
And I think we got more than they bargained for today, too.
More than they bargained for, but not as much as, say, Adam Schefter from ESPN. You won't get that much.
Pat, we appreciate the time.
Ralph's a big tweeter too.
He's got the blue screen, yeah.
Ralph's a blogger, a tweeter, a supposed writer, and he's a videographer now. He does it all.
And Pat does it all.
And he'll show up in any format, any form, including Giants.com.
And same for Pat Hanlon. Check him out, of course. And Pat, we appreciate the time. Thanks a lot.
It'll be the last, Schmelk.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it. All right, we can finally start focusing now on stuff going on the field. And Mike, today we mentioned the defense. A lot of great defensive plays in the secondary. We're seeing aggression going against this Giants wide receiver core that we haven't really seen in the past.
Yeah, I think it's funny that the DBs have heard all about all the attention the wide receivers are getting, and I think they want to get a little attention for themselves. And then you've got guys like Kenny Phillips who really wants to prove that he's better than he was as a rookie. The cornerbacks, Corey Webster and Aaron Ross, are still young players. Terrell Thomas is trying to make a name for himself. So those defensive backs are all over the receivers right now.
And what we're going to do here on Giants.com is each week we're going to pick a position that's kind of up in the air a little bit and talk about the battle, who's stepping up, who we think is going to step up. And helping us today doing that is Ralph Vacchiano from the New York Daily News. Ralph, we appreciate you joining us. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Ralph, where's your Giants shirt? Come on.
I know, I'm sorry. I feel a little left out. I was going to borrow Hanlon's, but, he's sweating through it.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
No, you don't want that. So let's start a wide receiver, guys. And I guess we'll start with you, Ralph. Hickson and Smith, I'm not going to say they're assumed starters, but I think they probably have the leg up based on their experience from last year. How firm do you think they are in those positions?
You know, I think Smith is probably pretty firm, and my guess is that Hickson's hold on it is okay as well. You know, I think they want to have those guys in that role, and Sonoris Moss probably fits in pretty well as the number 3 anyway. The wild card in this to me is Hakeem Nicks. How fast does he develop? Can he challenge at some point for one of those roles? But, you know, if anybody in this group steps up, certainly they could claim a starting spot. There's no doubt about it.
And Mike, another wild card has to be Mario Manningham, a second-year wide receiver, third-round pick last year, but he has first-round talent. And I'll throw it out to both of you. Do you feel like any of these wide receivers could contribute on special teams on either punt or kick returns?
You know, they look like they can. Obviously, the guys who are starting really can't double up much in that role, but, you know, just from what we've seen early in camp, they're all fast, and that's one of the big keys to being on special teams. Certainly, you got to be able to read where the coverage is and find those holes, but they seem like they're doing it well. All of them have done it before, so, yeah, the guys that aren't in the 1, 2, and 3 spots definitely could pick up in either kick returner or punt returner.
Mike, is it possible that they purposely limit Hickson's touches it wide out to get him in on kickoffs because that's where he's been so effective?
No,
in the past?
I wouldn't think so, John. I think they'd use somebody else's. I think they would still use Hickson as returner, but I think Moss and maybe Manningham will be. I would expect Moss to return kickoffs. I really would, and I think Manningham is in the mix too.
All right, Ralph. Finally, if you have to predict right now, what's your wide receiver depth chart looking week 1 of the season?
Boy, I think the top 3 are going to wind up being the same. I think that Smith and Hickson will probably be 1, 2, and I think. You know, it's hard to predict with Sonoris Moss because we know we've seen this before, but after a brilliant spring, I think he'll be number 3. Number 4 is where I'm not sure. It's going to be, you know, that's the wild card spot, Nicks or Manningham, whichever one has the better summer.
Mike, what do you think?
I don't want to diss Sonoris Moss, but I think it's going to be Manningham at number 3. I just have a feeling that he's going to have a big camp and is going to step up.
And you think Smith and Hickson will maintain their hold on those 1 and 2 spots?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, you don't really see very often in this camp a player come in as a starter and lose a job in camp. I really don't think that happens very frequently, and I don't think it's going to happen at that position. Now, I'm not going to say it couldn't happen down the road, but I think coming out of camp, it'll still be Smith and Hickson.
Well, it's wide open, folks. All these players have a chance to step up, really do a good job, and earn their playing time. Ralph, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Ralph
Thanks,
Vacchiano
Ralph.
from the New York Daily News on Giants.com. The Giants Training Camp Report, the online edition. Mike, final thoughts here before we say goodbye. 2 straight days of 2-a-days. Day off tomorrow. What's your general take the first 2 days of camp?
Well, like you said before, the defense, I think, is a little bit ahead of the offense at this point, which is to be expected. I think the players are going to come out Wednesday morning really fired up. First time in pads. They've been, I think, itching to really have some contact. So I think Wednesday is going to be a pretty exciting day here in Albany.
And we look forward to it. Mike, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, John.
John Schmelk, Michael Eisen on Giants.com will come your way tomorrow with some media avails. We'll have our report again on Thursday afternoon and Friday. We'll have another little different show. You'll check it out on Giants.com. It's all Giants all the time, only on Giants.com.